I do want to turn the attention to the next manager, or the lack of the next manager at the moment, Anthony, coming around to you, because there is massive pressure now on Daniel Levy to get the next one right. I mean, again, many will feel like he's had about 15, 20 lives to get the next one right. And we always keep saying, yeah, but he's only got one last chance. We've been saying that for the last 6 appointments, I think, with Daniel and the managerial situation. You know, interesting, we did see an interview this week on TalkSport from Spurs' former head of elite identification and development, David Webb, who was asked if Daniel Levy had ever said no to certain signings. He said, yes, there were cases where I was at Spurs. We had players in the building that we should have potentially signed that would have helped Pochettino at the time that didn't go through various aspects. There were questions being raised that sometimes if we had acquired that player at that certain time, it could have steered Tottenham in a different direction. When you hear words like that, and there's other managers that are looking at Tottenham, again, I think managers will be very, very fearful of coming in right now in terms of what they're going to be getting themselves into. We've heard reports that Julian Nagelsmann, there's a stumbling block there because he would ultimately like to know who the director of football is going to be before he wants to advance talks with Spurs. How do you see this managerial adventure playing out this time around, if I can call it that?
I think I'll say similar to what I said to you about Conte. I think it doesn't matter who the manager is if the board are not going to give them the tools to succeed. So I think if you're going to get in a manager, you need to back their style of play, buy the players, have a recruitment strategy that is going to buy the players that is going to fit their style. So if you're not going to have any of that, then just forget the whole conversation in general on who your director of football is going to be and who the manager is going to be. It doesn't matter. If you're going to get a manager in and a director of football that's going to complement that and then have a strategy in place that's going to get the players that's needed to play the style of football they want to play, then you're on to a win. So it really comes down to, are the board going to change tact? Are they going to learn from their mistakes? And are they going to change their ways to help us to succeed? That's my question. So for me, I think I'm not even thinking about who I want to be the next manager, because that doesn't fall into play with me until I know if the board are going to change their tact with things. That's where I stand.
But it's the issue, Matt, isn't it? I mean, we've seen them go for so many different types and caliber of managers, you know, from the win now managers to the project managers to the disciplinarians. You do wonder, you know, what type they'll go for next. There seems to be alludement to the fact that Spurs will now go for more of a project manager. But again, you know, there's got to be an element of patience from fans. But I think Anthony makes a great point there. How can you be patient? How can you show a willingness if you're not sure if whoever they're going to go for is going to be adequately backed? You know, we're hearing reports as we record this show that Spurs have sounded out Ruben Amorim of course, one of our previous opponents that we've seen, of course, in the Champions League. And again, I just wonder whether, again, whoever that next manager is going to be, are they going to get the time? And even more so, Matt, should Spurs be looking to get a new director of football in before they get the manager in, given that should be the person that should actually be setting the trend as to the, almost you would say, fulfillment and the success of how Spurs should go in these next few years? Because ultimately, when a manager leaves, it's the director of football that should be there, the constant that drives that recruitment, that drives that next manager, that makes sure that you've got a culture, you've got a vision. What do you make on that, Matt?
Yeah, I think in the modern game, you need a director of football, and for the exact reason that you've mentioned, because managerial turnover at the moment is, I mean, it's at a rate it's never been. You know, there's 4 teams in the Premier League who've sacked 2 managers this season, and there's 11 teams who don't have the same manager as they did on the 1st of August. You know, no matter what you are, unless you get incredibly lucky with a Klopp or with a Guardiola, or dare I say it, with an Arteta, you're going to have a high managerial turnover. You need that constant, and you need someone who, you know, obviously Prachi didn't work out, but someone who can get a manager with a philosophy. If that doesn't work out, get another manager with the same or similar philosophy. So we're not in a situation like we are now, where we have players that Poch brought in to attack and to press and to be exciting. Then you have players that Jose Mourinho brought in to sit as close to the goal as you possibly can and then kick the ball far for Son. And then Conte, who brought in players who knows what he wanted them to do. You know, we have such that mix and match, that if you have that director of football who can keep the same sort of philosophy, the same style of manager time and time again, who knows football better than Daniel Levy knows football, well, then sacking managers every 18 months might not be the worst thing in the world. It's still not the way we need to go for success. But that is really important. And then when you're looking at, like you mentioned, giving the manager time,